Hello everyone, welcome back to Touch the Fire Twice. I'm Joshua, and I'm here today to do an in-depth sniff and somewhat comparison review of the Bath & Body Works newly released candle, Pumpkin S'mores. But first, if you're new to Touch the Fire Twice, welcome. My mission here is to share my love and passion for fine home fragrance as an enthusiast, an educator, a reviewer, to inspire you to increase your own fragrance knowledge and understanding, ultimately enhancing the scent memories that you create. If you want to learn more about what I do, why I do it, and how I do it, you can check out my website at TouchTheFireTwice, and go give me a follow over on Instagram, also at TouchTheFireTwice. But for now, let's dig into Pumpkin S'mores. So this candle is, I believe, a new fragrance in 2024 within the Bath & Body Works, let's say early mid-fall collection. They have had at least one, maybe two s'mores fragrances in the past, and they've done a fair amount of vanilla, cream, marshmallow adjacent fragrances over the years, and also a decent number of chocolate-based fragrances. For me, I'm not a big fan of really any of those. Some of the marshmallows I can get into, certainly Marshmallow Fireside, the classic, the OG, and the lavender marshmallow I can enjoy. So fragrances with marshmallow can be good, but it really depends on the other notes that fortify it and build around it, whether I like it or not. So most chocolate fragrances, though Bath & Body Works has had a decent amount of them over the years, I'm not a fan of. So like the hot fudge ones, the milkshake variations, the Valentine's like candy confection ones, chocolate really doesn't have much of a scent to it. I spoke about something like this in my Stranger Things review. You can watch here if you've not seen it yet. And that is the idea that certain things in the confectionery world that don't have much of an actual scent, it's more so taste. And of course, taste and scent are completely intertwined. You don't have one without the other, really. But something like a bar of chocolate or even melted chocolate doesn't have a particularly strong scent. It does have a very strong taste, obviously, so people love it. But if you just open a candy bar by itself, a Hershey bar, for instance, for s'mores, there's a bit of a waxy, slightly sweet, a little bit bitter from the cocoa fragrance, but even cocoa powder itself doesn't have an intensely strong scent typically. And so when it comes to the chocolate candles over the years, they've just leaned, for me, for the most part, fairly artificial and not something that I necessarily want to smell in my home. I'll eat some chocolate, but do I want my home to smell like it? I don't know. Kind of like the pink bubblegum candle. It smells so authentic, actually, in that case, because bubblegum is artificially flavored usually, right? But I don't think I've ever actually lit any of the bubblegum candles because I just don't really know that I want my home to smell like that. And not from a judgmental perspective, but just I don't have the desire to have that smell covering my space. But I did buy, all that to say, I did buy Pumpkin S'mores because it did smell kind of unique. Now, as I said, there have been many variations on fragrances with marshmallows or with chocolate or with graham crust, graham cracker, all that kind of thing with Bath & Body Works fragrances over the years. Now, I did purchase the original OG S'mores, which I think was just one and done from the classic revered OG 2011 Fall Slatkin & Co. Bath & Body Works collection. And that one was solid. It was fairly straightforward. It was slightly sweet, not as sweet as you expect, not as sweet even as Marshmallow Fireside. There's a bit of a dark chocolate aspect to it and some graham, but again, as I say, graham and chocolate don't always have the strongest fragrance, and so to get it right in an artificially scented candle, it's really hit or miss, more miss for me, though I know there's some hits and some people love some of those. But this seemed interesting and intriguing to me and actually worth purchasing and reviewing. Let's just talk a little bit aesthetics, then we'll get into the scent. This is in that sort of luminary collection where there's a bit of, you can actually see kind of in the light, at least I can see as the light coming through it this way. Around the gold leaf, there actually is a bit, you can see there's a bit wider of a different level of sort of medium translucency that does allow the light from the flame to flicker through there and then illuminate from the back. Notes are roasted marshmallow, melted chocolate, and pumpkin graham cracker. And I will say from the jump, I burned this a decent amount of time so far. It's not too far down there. As you can see, it gets a little bit hot sometimes, a little bit of soot there. The fragrance itself, it is nice. It is not super strong, but I appreciate that it's not cloyingly sweet. It keeps it from veering into just overly artificial. I would say right from the jump, the vanilla in here reminds me a bit of the vanilla pumpkin marshmallow. Was very popular for some years. I think it comes back almost every year. I've not seen it yet this year. It kind of is one of those comes and goes fragrances, and it is a really gooey, sweet, vanilla, almost vanilla cream sort of marshmallow. It's not as powdery, airy of a marshmallow like you get from your lavender marshmallow. It is more of an ooey gooey like marshmallow fluff with a heavy hit of a creamy, milky vanilla, not so much a pure vanilla extract, vanilla bean, but more like a vanilla cream, a creme anglaise mixed with a marshmallow fluff or something. That one though, the last time I purchased it, maybe 2 or 3 years ago, almost just made me feel kind of nauseous. It was just too overwhelmingly cloying for some reason for me, and I have not burned it since. I would say the marshmallow in here is similar to that vanilla pumpkin marshmallow fragrance, but it is toned down to it because that is not the entirety of this candle. It really is balanced with your chocolate and your graham notes as well. But I like that. So it feels familiar to me, but in an acceptable form. The chocolate, I think I can see where it's coming from. It just adds a little bit of a richness, a little bit of a bitterness, more like a bittersweet chocolate or semi-sweet chocolate chip, not a super soft milk chocolate. But again, it's hard to pick that out. Like if you said to someone, what does it smell like? I imagine most would not say chocolate. If you have like a fudgy candle, I go back to sort of a Homeworks that was an ice cream collection, and there was a fudge candle, and it truly smelled like chocolatey fudge, not necessarily like hot fudge sauce, but more so almost like fudge. And it really truly had a nutty and rich chocolate fragrance. And so this doesn't have that sort of chocolate. It's a bit of a background, kind of what you smell if you smell a candy bar or bag of semi-sweet chocolate chips. And the graham, there is sort of a graham in there. Actually, you know, I love to do sometimes in my videos is, I've pulled out like Pop-Tarts, I pulled out juniper berries before. I pulled out just a couple of graham crackers here. And the thing is, this is just a honey graham cracker, and it has very little fragrance to it. It's like biscuit cookie, but not very sweet, just almost like, this is honey, so there's just a bit of a hint of sweetness, but I mean, it's straight up, there's not much to graham crackers. You've got some flour, you've got some whole wheat flour for the graham, and some sugar and honey, so there's not, it's more of a texture thing, like, animal crackers. It's slightly sweet. This one's almost slightly a little bit toasty. Inoffensive. I like grahams in general. Certainly graham crust I do enjoy, but it doesn't have much of a fragrance. It's kind of got that malty cereal fragrance to it. And so I suppose there's some of that in here because there is a little bit of that sweetness. I don't want to say nuttiness, but the depth that comes from graham. I will say with Bath & Body Works, sometimes their graham note, for me, I think almost leans kind of sour. And that may be because it's often attached to fragrances like a cheesecake fragrance or any fragrance that has some aspect that is lactonic, milky, and not your sweet, milky, creamy, but more of, cream cheese or a bit of a sour factor, which just sometimes gives me a sour milk fragrance. And that kind of interplays with their graham notes sometimes for me. And so I don't know if the graham smells like that or if I'm just kind of conflating the two in the scent memory and tying them together, right? But I don't get that from this, which I appreciated. And that's something that from like the pumpkin cinnamon bun, sometimes that, I suppose the cream cheese frosting or glaze that is, I think in that one, just leans a little too sour for me, or just a little bit off, just like kind of off-putting in a way that isn't pleasing. I'm not the biggest fan of cream cheese frosting. I like cream cheese on a bagel with lox, and I'll eat cream cheese frosting, but it's not, I don't need gobs and gobs of it. It's not one of my favorites. Thankfully, obviously as a s'more, there's none of that kind of tanginess in here. Now, when it comes to the authenticity of certainly pumpkin or a pumpkin graham cracker, you could make a pumpkin graham cracker. This is not, but you certainly, if you put cinnamon, a little allspice, a little bit of nutmeg, maybe even some actual flesh of pumpkin into a graham cracker, it could taste pumpkin-y. I don't get anything like that in here. There's really no spices, autumnal spices like you think of pumpkin spice. So many candles in every brand, but especially Bath & Body Works, are named blah, 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 pumpkin, pumpkin, blah, 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 pumpkin. And most of the time, with a few rare exceptions like your pumpkin carving, most of the time it's just the pumpkin spices, not an actual pumpkin note itself, the gourd. And in here, this is really, for me, pure marketing because there's no spices whatsoever in there. This is just a traditional s'more, which they could have released without calling it pumpkin s'mores. There's no marketing cutesiness to make this seem pumpkin-y. It's not part of a broad pumpkin collection. And s'mores works as a late summer, early fall fragrance. Didn't have to be pumpkin, whatever, that's fine, it's their marketing. As far as what I think of the fragrance, it's probably a one and done for me, to be honest, but I enjoy it more than I thought I would. And I do think I should have gone into my storage I apologize, I didn't. I should have tried to dig out the old s'mores candle because I do think this one is exceedingly close to that original from 2011 because, at least from scent memory, and we're going on 13 years scent memory here, so hard to say how accurate that really is, but it does have that same sort of simple, sweet, clean marshmallow, a little bit of that bitter artificial chocolate, and just a little bit of, it's not a graham crust, it is crunched up with extra sugar and butter and then baked. It's kind of like your dried graham cracker that you're gonna use by the campfire to throw a marshmallow and a chunk of cheap Hershey's on it to get that little sugar bomb around the fire. And so in that sense, it's kind of authentic to what a s'more smells like, in the sense that s'mores, fight me on it, don't really smell good. They're fun to do. I argue they don't even taste that great. They're so sweet, especially using like, cheap Hershey's chocolate. It's just, you have one and you're like, that was not even that good, I don't need it. It's the act of it. The roasted marshmallow, of course, get that burnt sugar, that can be delicious. I would rather have just 1 or 2 roasted marshmallows. Of course, Marshmallow Fireside kind of fills that need at an elevated level. So when it comes to s'mores, I don't think they smell good. I don't think there's much of a need for them, but they're so fun, they're so nostalgic that in that sense, it makes sense for them to be in a candle. Smelling this on cold, doesn't smell like a whole lot. When it's lit, it does have a decent travel, throw and projection. It's nice, probably better for layering with something else. Top of mind, something probably a bit more spiced. Any of the bakery fragrances that have a spice to it, maybe even a straight up, sort of kitchen spice, autumnal spiced blend would be nice paired with this to amp up that pumpkin side, even a sweet cinnamon pumpkin, though I'm not a fan. Pumpkin carving could be nice with this. They're both sweet without being overly cloying, and it would ramp up sort of that pumpkin aspect that frankly is missing from here. So inoffensive, nice, straightforward, a bit generic and cheap, a one and done for me, but I'm generally enjoying it as I'm burning through it. So I'd love to hear what you think. Is this better than, worse than other s'more-like or chocolate and marshmallow or graham fragrances Bath & Body Works? What's your favorite graham or vanilla or marshmallow candle from Bath & Body Works or other brands? Would love to hear your thoughts on that. Or any questions, and until next time, take care.